So this is a lunchtime gentle yoga class, which means it's just 30 minutes long. So it's a great class to squeak into your day if you have other things going on. We are going to need a couple of things for our practice today. So if you have a yoga strap, grab that. If you don't have a yoga strap in you, but you have a towel or a dog leash or a rope or an old belt, those are useful. So we'll get to this near the end, but having it nearby will be good. We're going to do a couple of seated poses, and when you sit cross-legged on the floor or sit with your feet together and your knees open like this, if that bothers your knees, you might want some things that you can use under your knees for support. So you could use a couple of throw pillows like that, to put under your knee, or you could use some yoga blocks. These are a little more firm. I like the pillows better personally. For that particular purpose, I like blocks for like the lunges and things like that where I want to be a little more stable. So for now, we're just going to start in whatever cross-legged or sitting position is comfortable for you. If you prefer to start kneeling between your feet, you can do it that way. You can sit cross-legged. You can sit up on a pillow because that's useful, especially for just kind of pausing. I'm going to get this purple pillow back out in just a second, but just before I go beyond that, if it's better to have the legs out straight or to have your feet together like little butterfly wings, those are also fine. The thing that's important is that you're comfortable enough to sit here for a few moments and that your back will stay largely stable, okay? So it doesn't feel like you're slouching. Okay, so I'm going to take this. So this is a pillow, it's just big enough to be easy to sit on, but any pillow will do, and it's not too thick. So it's kind of a nice, it's a little bit squishy. I like having just a little bit of support. A folded blanket would work exactly the same. So then once you sit on it, you sort of glide up to the edge of it. So it's not under your thigh as much as it's under just the sit bones. And then we're going to pause for a moment. So you just pause with your seated position. I like to close my eyes because it's easier for me to kind of go inside and pay attention. And then notice your shoulders and just notice if maybe they've kind of been hunched up a little bit around your ears. Let those relax. And sometimes for me it helps to move them a little bit first. Find a position to rest your hands in that feels like your shoulders are able to stay in that relaxed position. And then we're going to concentrate on some really deep breaths. So we're going to try to let the rib cage and even the navel and the sides of the waist all expand with the inhale. So you just feel yourself getting taller and larger, and then exhale and let everything just fall out. Let the exhale just release itself out. So we're going to do 2 more breaths like that, just trying to get into all the little edges, just make the breath as big as they'll go without straining. And then once your exhale comes out on that second breath, we're going to let ourselves start to move. Now, you can move a little sort of front to back. One of the things I like about having like a little pillow or blanket underneath my hip is it's a little bit easier for me to kind of rock backwards and forwards. So if you want to add it for this point, you could. Just kind of rock forward and back. Oh. So when you rock forward, let the pelvis tilt forward, but then create a lift in the breastbones. You kind of arching your back, and then that rounding of your back. Okay, so we're going to do that 2 more times. Just kind of letting the spine and the pelvis and the shoulders kind of move in relationship to each other. And then we're gonna sit up nice and tall and spin into a twist. So at this point, if you wanted to, you could bring that leg up that's kind of where your hand wants to go. And then keep yourself, like you might have to lean back a little bit to really get tall and then come in. That's also a useful way to do it. So we're gonna breathe really deep. I have the patio doors open. There was a sound outside that I was a little bit, I've never heard before. Two more breaths. Not turning my head too sharply. I'm just kind of letting my head drift in this direction of the twist. Just to keep the neck and the shoulders a little bit on the loose side. Okay, so we've come out of that twist. And then when you get out, do some movement. And then pause for a moment and just feel. Now, I'm going to cross my other leg in front. This is not my normal way to sit cross-legged, so as soon as I do it, it's a little weird. But it gives me that other knee on top, right? So you're going to sit up nice and tall, rotate or lean back a little bit, and then come back to being tall, and maybe you pick that leg up so you can hold on to it. You can leave it down low too. You don't have to pick it up. I think I've discovered the sound anyway. Dumpster sounds somewhere off in the distance. Taking nice deep breaths. I'm back to the yoga now, y'all. Okay, come around. Oh, and again, we're gonna let this kind of get loose. Now, I'm gonna get off this pillow because what we're gonna do next is gonna be come up to all fours. So loosen up your spine, give yourself a little bit of movement. And then when you're ready, you can come up to all fours. Now, if you normally need a little more padding under your knees, get whatever you need for that. A folded blanket could work. There's other ways to do that you might have at your house. There's fancy yoga props you can buy just for padding up your knees. But if you've got those, grab them. Otherwise, we'll just do our thing. Now, I have a carpeted surface and I have a mat, and that makes things a little squishy. So for the wrist, if your wrist has trouble bending in this kind of almost 90-degree angle, then you're going to want to angle your hands a little further out in front of you. Okay? So when you come up to all fours, especially for me, especially on a squishy surface, because it tends to already want to flex my, or hyperextend my wrist here, okay? So I'm gonna bring my body weight a little forward and a little back, and just kind of try to find the place where my wrist is like, yep, that's good. And so it might be a little forward of the shoulder for the, your purposes here. Okay, so then we're gonna round the back up and let it sway. We did these two movements seated, now we're gonna do them here kneeling, and feel the difference in the way your arms and shoulder and pelvis all kind of accept these movements. Alright, so we're going to do one more, but this time when we come out of this and come back to the inhale shape, we're going to pick up the right leg, and as you exhale, you're going to bring it in towards your navel, and then pick it up and kind of, if you can, lift it as high as it's willing to go, and then pick it up and bring it towards your navel, and then you're going to lift it up. Now we're going to bring this leg all the way forward, and then we'll come into this lunge shape. Now I've got furniture beside me. You might have a big open space, and you might want some blocks, okay, for support. Since I've got this credenza, I'm gonna use it. Mostly because I like to say the word credenza. All right, so I'm leaning in with my hip here until I feel something that feels like a stretch or it feels like a sensation. And then I'm just gonna let myself lift up a little bit through my breastbone so I have a little bit of a back bend. If you want to add on to that, you can add the arms up or back, okay? I like to let the shoulders fall open, but I'm not, I have pretty tight shoulders, and trying to reach back around tends to land in my elbow in a way that's uncomfortable at this point. So just opening up that space is good. So take a nice big breath. And then we're going to slide the hips back. Now, as the hips slide back, we're going to straighten out this right leg. You might be able to get your hands to the floor. You might not. So you might need to use some pillows or props or yoga blocks to get the floor up to you. Now, what I feel when I do this, and I'm folding more directly over my leg, is I feel this hamstring stretch in these kind of outer portion of the hamstrings. So just noticing that for yourself. If you want to level it out a little bit, you can come slightly more to the inside. And that'll take the pressure away, a little bit away from the outside and bring it more towards a kind of general sense of stretch on the whole hamstring area. Okay, so we're going to do one more breath like this. And then we're going to make a little adjustment. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to pick up my leg that's up here in the front, and I'm just going to slide it out to the side. And then I'm going to stand back up on this knee and adjust this leg. So your toes can point that way. Your toes can point forward. You can put the foot on the ground. So if you point your toes up or point your toes out or point your toes forward, it's going to change the relationship of your femur bone in your hip socket a little bit, okay? So what you're feeling for is what feels like the best. And I generally like it to go a little more to the outside, pointing in that direction so that it feels like my thigh is kind of pointing straight up toward the ceiling. All right, now you might like it a different way. So then we're going to bend over this leg. This is called the gate pose. So you're coming towards the leg that you straightened out. Oh, it's a variation. There's a couple of different versions of the gate pose. This is the kneeling version. Okay, so one more breath here. And then we're going to come back out, bring both knees to the ground, and we'll come back to our all fours position. Oh, I like to give that leg a shake. All right, now, again, I'm going to position my wrist so it feels like I've got the right amount of bend in my wrist there. And then it could be that one arm is different than the other. And so you might have one hand slightly forward of the other. That's okay. So give it a couple of rounds of cat. One more time like this, where you do these little tucks and tilts. And then we're taking that left leg up and bringing it under. And bringing it up. And if you can, kind of bring it up as high as it'll go and bring it under. And bring it up as high as it'll go, and this time we're going all the way through. So it turns into the lunge. And again, once I've got my legs in position, I'm going to kind of surf this a little until I feel the stretch somewhere in the front of the hip. And then I can use support around me as needed. I like to just let my shoulder blades kind of retract into each other a little bit and feel that kind of stretch across the chest. Breathe in. And so 2 more big breaths. So now I'm going to take my hips back and I'm going to fold over this front leg. And again, you could go more over the leg or you can go a little bit to the inside. So you just feel out how that gives your hamstrings a little stretch. And decide how you want to do it. Going to take a little moment here, and again, now normally what I would have done on the other side, I swung the leg around, but because I've got a piece of furniture here, I'm going to actually just turn the rest of my torso so that I've kind of realigned myself for this gate pose. And again, kind of pointing the leg out for me, just slightly to the diagonal, but mostly straight out, so my thigh points up tends to work the best. And then side bending out over. And be mindful, like I'm not putting pressure on this knee, right? My whole body's holding itself up. I'm using my leg for just a little bit of balance, but be mindful of your knee here. Oh, don't push against it. You need to put your hand up close to your thigh bone, hip socket, thigh bone area. Take one more breath, and then come on back. And again, we're gonna come back to all fours. So you can give that leg a little shake. And then, we're gonna do a little child's pose for a moment. So if you are a child's pose lover, do whatever child's pose version you want. If child's pose is a tricky pose for you, try slightly wider in the knees and don't worry about going back so far. stay a little bit more forward. You might even prop up on your elbows. If it lets you come in a little deeper, come in deeper, let your forehead rest. If not, stay up a little higher. Oh. Now, we're going to do a stretch for the back of our arms. And some people will need a little prop for this, and some of us won't, okay? So we're going to bring the weight forward. Now, you can bring your knees in a little bit. I like to. And so the hip winds up about over the knee. And this is a stretch for part of our shoulder, our upper back, and our the back of our arms, our triceps. And depending on where you're tight, you might feel it in all of those places or none. Now, I'm on my elbows, and I'm going to slide my elbows forward and try to bring my shoulders into a feeling of stretch. Now, I've bent my elbows, so I'll feel that in the back of my arms more. If you keep it straighter, you won't feel it as much in the back of your arms. But we're letting the shoulder blades kind of come down the back, melting towards the floor. Now, if you feel something there, don't change it. Stay there. If you don't feel something, then you can elevate this pose with a couple of blocks. Make sure your elbows are about shoulder distance apart, right? So we don't want the elbows way out wide. You want them in nice and snug, so that as you drop through here, you're feeling that in your back and shoulder and not so much in the chest. We're going to hold it for 3 more breaths as best we can. Now to come out of this, I put pressure in my elbows and I move my body weight forward, and then I come out of here. And we're going to lay on our back. This is the part where you'll need your strap. Now I know that once I lay down here, I'm going to want to stay laying down here. So I'm going to gather a couple of things just to make myself more comfortable. I've got my strap. I've got a pillow to put underneath my legs, the one I'm not using, and I have a blanket to use as a pillow. Okay? So I'm going to lie down here. Oh, it's going to feel good. And I'm going to give myself a little windshield wipery back massagey moment once I get here. Oh, because that's going to feel good. Now I'm going to take this pillow and put it down here so that when I'm doing one leg with this strap, I can leave the other leg resting really comfortably on this pillow. So either just a throw pillow or something like this that's a little bigger will work. Couch cushion, something like that. And then just make sure that the support under your head is creating a situation where for the most part your neck is in a neutral position. So if it feels like your head is kind of leaning up, your chin's leaning up, you might need a bigger support under your head to bring your head into neutral. And if it feels like it the other way, if it's tucking your chin into your chest, do a little bit less support. Okay, so whatever the amount of support is, you just want a neutral sort of feeling to your neck and your chin to be about level. Okay, so I'm going to angle myself just a little bit on the diagonal so I have a little bit more room. And then I'm going to pause and just notice which leg I want to start with. So you can start with the right or the left here. So I'm going to do my right leg first. So I'm going to bring the right leg in and give it a little hug. And then I'm going to spin my foot in circles. So get the ankle joint a little bit as well. We did some work for our shoulder joints and for a little bit on the arms and the shoulders, and so we'll do a little bit on the hips and the ankles, a little bit more as well. A little ankle thrown in there. I like doing things for my feet because, you know, our feet work hard, man. Those tiny little surfaces hold our whole body up in space. So this is where you can either hold on to your big toe with your peace sign fingers, or you could hold on with your hands, although I think it's better to have a strap because you can relax a little bit more through the shoulders. And so if you have a strap that has a loop in it, you can put your foot through the loop and then your wrist through the loop, and that's a little easier to hang on to it. If you have a strap that's just kind of a long, you know, just a long straight shape, you can hold on to it however you like. One way to do it with a little less effort is to wrap it around your wrist first and then hold on. You can tighten that around the wrist and it gives you just a little bit of extra support. You can even, sometimes if you've tightened it up enough, you can also just let go with the fingers a little bit and hold on to just the end of the strap with your thumb. So that's up to you how you want to get there. All right. And so if I move the strap up closer to the ball with my foot, so that's really close to my toes, as I put the weight on my arm here, I get a lot more stretch in my calf muscles, which is where I need it. I need more calf muscle, less hamstring. Hamstrings are good, don't get me wrong, but I like the calf muscles are where my body is really tight on that backside. And so for me, we're gonna hang out here for about another 25 seconds. For me, this is the jam. And you can bend your knee and straighten it when you're holding these kinds of stretches. I do that periodically just to sort of feel the change in the pressure. We've got 2 breaths left here. So we're going to take a big inhale, and then we're going to let the leg go out to the side. And this is where you could like use your pillow a little differently. You could put that under that one hip or under this thigh, so you've got a little extra support. Now I've got a piece of furniture, so I could just rest my foot on this furniture. And actually I'm going to do that. But if you don't have the furniture, you can build up a little structure. Like you could put a block or something under your hip to keep your leg steady. Now your leg might go all the way to the floor, but if you have range of motion issues and you go all the way to the floor, there can be, like it's too spicy in your inner thigh and groins, and that's not an area that I would recommend overstretching. It's very tender and delicate. So stretch appropriately, y'all. Keep it appropriate. For you. So we're gonna stay for about 30 more seconds-ish, 32 probably, to be exact. Okay, so we're going to take a big breath. And now I like to bend the knee a little bit to come back to the center. You can come back with a totally straight leg. It just takes a little bit, it sort of collects the muscle of my inner thigh and my quadriceps a little bit where those muscles overlap, and it makes it kinder to come around. So now we're going all the way over into a twist, okay? So we're letting this hip roll forward, pressing into the strap, rolling the shoulders back towards the ground as you like. You can look to the left or to the right. And then, if the feeling of this is too much, you can put the pillow underneath the bottom of your leg and then stack your top leg on top of the bottom leg, and it should give you quite a lot of support. Here, I'll show you what I mean. So if I take a block or even a pillow and I put it on the bottom and I stack the bottom leg on top of that, then I have a place where I can stack the top leg on top. Okay, and that does give you a little bit more structure and support. And then what I'm doing while I'm hanging out here and breathing is I'm letting this hip go this direction, right? And trying to let it fall off that way so that there's a little bit more length between my armpit and my hip. So we've got just a wee bit longer, about 3 breaths. Now as you exhale, bend your knee, come on back to the center. Ooh, and we're gonna release the foot. And before we do anything else, we're gonna give this leg a really good shake. And so you can shake it in kind of a bigger pattern, or you can do a really tiny shake. I like to do a combo. Big, 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 big shakes that feel like it rattles my whole body and changes my voice quality. And little tiny shakes that are more like kind of jittery in the bones of the foot, okay? All right, so now we're gonna let this leg come down, and along the way you might want to do like a couple of these little windshield wiper moves, and then straighten that right leg out and straighten the left leg out. I like to give them a little stretch, and then just pause for a moment and feel. So when you feel the right side versus the left side, is there a difference in the way the whole leg feels? Are there any places that feel a little bit tender or sore? Does everything feel light and really nice? a little longer. Like, there's no right or wrong way to feel the results of a yoga pose. It is what it is, right? You just feel what you feel. But here's the thing, if you're not used to paying attention to details, let yourself take a moment and try, because you will build this awareness over time. And this awareness is important. Like, that's part of what we're working towards, so that we become like just more sort of fine-tuned in our awareness of the physical body and in the way our mind works and everything else. Just kind of trying to get really near ourselves. So we're going to do the other side if you guys are up for this. So before we get crazy with the strap, we're going to hug the leg in and give it a moment. And then you're going to spin your foot. Now if you can't hold onto your leg, don't worry about it. Just bring your leg up and spin your foot around. It'll work. Oh. Your yoga practice will evolve over time. So if something's not happening right now, don't sweat it. In 5 years, it might be easy. So, this is something that, I don't know about you guys, but, for me anyway, it's like, yeah, I'm going to be doing this until I'm however old I am when I kick it off. So hopefully like 110, we'll see. I'm aiming for that. Let's see what happens. But we'll flex and point after you've done circles in both directions, right? So we're getting the ankle joint just a little bit more lubricated, especially if it's been static for a while today. And then we'll take the strap, if you're using it, and wrap that around your foot. And then adjust the bottom leg before you get all the way in, right? So before this is 11 on your volume control. Get your lower leg, the bottom leg, the right leg in this case, a little more set up. And then, like, you might even start with your knee a little bit bent and see, like, what happens if I bring my leg in? What happens if I try to straighten that leg out? And so we're kind of exploring the poses. How does it feel to add more, calf muscle to the mix? Right, if I bring it, I get kind of close to my toes sometimes. So I can dig into the calf muscles. So you just find your way in. And again, it can be a little more or a little less. So we're here at lunchtime. We're trying to bring some ease and some, or you might be doing this at 2 in the morning, I don't know, but we're whatever time we're doing this, we're trying to bring a little bit of ease and a little bit of just a sense of well-being to our body at the middle of the day point. It's a nice way to take a break in the middle of the day. So we're going to take 2 more breaths here. And then we're going to take this leg with our next little moment here out to the side. So again, I had a piece of furniture on the other side that I could rest my leg on. I don't on this side. So I'm building it. So I've got a little place for my leg to land. So it's just the right amount of stretch. Right? I could use a little bit more space actually. So this is the game. You play with it. Find it. Oh yeah. You might bend and straighten into it. You might do little rotations in and out of it. So you're just finding the amount of stretch that seems like the right amount for you. Again, it's not, just in general, aggressive stretching is not helpful, right? We want to find sensation, like, oh, okay, I feel that. And then ride a little wave around that point. So a little bit less and a little bit more. Right in that sweet spot is what we're aiming for. It's sort of like the Goldilocks story, right? Where the porridge was too hot and the porridge was too cold and then the porridge was just right. So that's the idea. Like when you find too hot, back off. If it's too cold, you don't feel anything, you go in a little more. You're looking for just right. Okay, so we're going to take 2 more breaths. And then we're going to come back to the middle and all the way across for the twist. And so I might run into this furniture, I am. So I'm just going to bend my knee because I can get a twist the same way. I won't get quite the same amount of some of the stretch, but I'll get enough. So if you have some space limitations, adjust for your space. You might be in a teeny tiny space. You can still work with it. You're letting your hip kind of fall away a little bit. Breathing. So we're going to take a nice big inhale. Ooh, let go with a big sigh. And then we're coming on back, yogis. Now, you can release yourself from the strap and take a moment. We're going to keep that leg up in the air and we're going to shake it. Give it a good rinse, give it a good rinse, give it a good rinse. Some bigger shakes, some littler shakes, some bigger ones. Oh, the bigger ones are feeling good right now. I'm going with the big ones. All right, and then when you're ready, you're gonna let that leg fall back down. Oh, and we're gonna take just a moment, again, just to notice, how does everything feel? So just notice the sensation in your hips, notice the sensation in your shoulders, in your just overall countenance. Do you feel a little bit more relaxed, a little more at ease? Hopefully. I hope it worked out. Now, the great news is if you don't have somewhere where you have to immediately go, you can continue this on your own and do Shavasana. So just a final relaxation shape where you lay here for a few minutes, 5 minutes, 10 minutes, however long. Or you got lunch to get on so that you can go back to your job. Then in that case, give yourself a big stretch. Oh. And curl up in a ball. Oh, and give yourself a back massage. Now, I like to roll to my side and then take a moment and then sit up. But if you want to rock up, you can do that. So, thanks for joining me for a little yet gentle yoga lunchtime refresh. Hopefully it worked really, really nicely for you. Take a big breath. Exhale out. And enjoy the rest of your day. Namaste.